Thomas and Friends, Wooden Railway Originals, Episode 10, The New Engine. It was a beautiful morning on the island of Sodor, but also a sad morning for some of the engines. It was the time for Charlie, Austin, and Kathy, and Holly, wherever she was, to leave the island of Sodor and go back to the other railway. Then Sir Topham Hatt arrived.
"Now, engines, say your final goodbyes."
"Goodbye," said the engines. "Goodbye," said Charlie, Austin, and Kathy. And soon they all left to go back to the other railway.
"I'm really going to miss them," said Duck.
"Austin was a great engine," peeped Percy.
"Kathy was a tram," said Toby.
"And Charlie was really funny," said James. Then Sir Topham Hatt asked the engines,
"Do y'all know where Holly is? I cannot find her anywhere."
"No, sir," said all of the engines. "We don't. We haven't seen her in a while," they said.
"Okay," said Sir Topham Hatt. "But I think she's on this island somewhere."
Just then, the engines heard a familiar puffing sound. Down the line came Thomas, Edward, Henry, and Gordon.
"Nice to see you back," said Sir Topham Hatt.
"Thank you, sir," said Thomas. "We're glad to be back, too." "It was really boring sitting in the workshop all day, sir."
"I miss pulling goods trains, sir," said Henry. "And I really missed pulling the express, sir," said Gordon. "Who pulled it while I was away?" said Gordon.
"I did, Gordon."
"Oh, good, James."
"I was one of the only engines on the railway while y'all were gone, strong enough to pull it," said James.
"Well, you must have did a great job," said Gordon.
"Thanks," he said. James.
"Well," said Sir Topham Hatt, "it's time to go do your jobs. Now get going now," he said.
So the engine set off in numerical order back to the sheds to have a meeting. So the meeting started at the sheds. "Who filled in for our places?" said Edward. "Well," said James. Then Percy interrupted. "There were 4 engines," he said. "Their names were Holly, Charlie, Austin, and Kathy," he said.
"Kathy was a steam tram," said Toby. "Austin looked very similar to Thomas," said Duck.
"Really?" said Thomas.
"Yes," said Duck. "He was painted many different colors, blue, red, and green," he said.
"Wow," said Thomas. "Charlie was the funniest," said James. He was the other railway's controller's favorite engine. He was really funny and told jokes to us," said James. "Well, that sounded like a lot of fun," said Thomas. "Well," said Edward, "we better get to work before Sir Topham Hatt gets mad at us." "Yes," said the other engines. So the engines left. Edward arrived back at the Wellsworth station yard, and he saw an engine he had never seen before. "Who are you?" he asked. "Oh, hi, I'm Holly." "Holly? Your name's Holly. You should have already went back to the other railway," said Edward. "Not exactly. I had an accident while I was here, and I'm still being fixed." "Does the Fat Controller know?" "No," she said. "But I'm hopefully going to get out of here soon and get back to the other railway before I get in big trouble," she said. Just as she said that, the Fat Controller walked up. "Holly, where have you been?" "I have been here in this shed, sir. I have been fixed." "Why haven't you gone back to the other railway?" he boomed. "But sir, I don't want to go back to the other railway. If I go back, I will be scrapped. And if you didn't know, when the controller on the other railway, he has been planning a plot, and it's where all the steam engines there are going to be scrapped, and they're going to be thrown into a shed of fire. And
"I do not care," said Sir Topham Hatt. "I need you gone immediately. The controller on the other railway will be very frustrated that you are not there."
"But sir, I will be..."
"Go now," said the Fat Controller.
"Yes, sir," she said, as she puffed away very sad. "Sir," said Edward, "why didn't she go back?"
"I do not know, Edward."
"Well, she said that she had an accident while she was here, and she was being fixed here in the yard."
"Well, that's what happened. Well, she needs to go back to the other railway where she belongs."
"But sir," said Edward, she will be surely scrapped indeed," said Edward.
"It doesn't matter, Edward. The controller on the other railway will be very frustrated with me because she hadn't gone back with the other engines."
"But sir," said Edward,
"She'll be scrapped, I know."
"But sir, she was a perfectly fine engine, and she had just been fixed."
"And she hasn't been tested for running properly. Oh no," said the Fat Controller.
"But sir," said Edward, "can't she just stay here on the island of Sodor?" said Edward.
Said Sir Topham Hatt. "I'll have to think about it," he said, "and I'll have to, darn it, what's the word?
"You'll have to compromise," said Edward.
"Yes, compromise. I will have to compromise with the other railway controller for her to stay here permanently," he said.
"Okay, sir," said Edward. I'll go up the line and get her," said Edward.
"Yes, you must, Edward. She has not been tested and might cause a fatal accident," he said.
"Yes, sir." And Edward puffed away very quickly. Soon Edward rushed and turned them off. And he could see that Holly was going to be lifted into the boat to go back onto the other railway.
"Holly," said Edward.
"Yes," she said.
"You are needed to go back to Wellsworth Station immediately," he said. "The Fat Controller needs to speak with you."
"Oh," she said. "Okay."
"I'll lower you back down," said Cranky.
"Oh yes, please," she said. Soon Holly and Edward steamed back down the line to go back to Wellsworth Station to talk to the Fat Controller. Soon the two engines steamed back into Wellsworth Station where the Fat Controller was standing on the platform.
"Holly," said the Fat Controller.
"Yes, sir," she said.
"I am very sorry that I sent you away."
"Yes, sir, I'm sorry, sir. It was my fault. I had an accident through the back of the sheds. And it wasn't my fault because my brakes weren't working properly," she said. On the other railway, they barely even bothered to repair us, 'cause the diesels are taking over, and
"There is no need to tell me," said the Fat Controller. "You are to stay here on the island of Sodor until further notice," he said.
"Thank you, sir," she said. She was very happy. She wouldn't have to be sent back to be scrapped.
Now, run along now, and do your usual jobs," said the Fat Controller.
"Yes, sir," she said.
"But," he said, "I will need to do a test run on you. I will need to do a test run."
"Oh, yes, sir. Anything, sir."
Soon, Sir Topham Hatt boarded Holly, and so did a workman.
And they puffed down the line, and soon came back. And Sir Topham and the Fat Controller came out.
"Good," said the Fat Controller. "You are ready to work on the island of Sodor," said Sir Topham Hatt.
"Thank you," said Holly.
And she rushed away quickly. She was happy now.
A few hours later, all the engines were at the turntable.
And then Sir Topham Hatt spoke. "Engines, we have a new addition to the railway," he said.
"Who?" said Thomas.
"Yes, who?" said James. "You will see. Our newest addition to the railway is Holly."
"What? Me, sir?"
"Yes, I have talked to the other railway's controller, and he said that you could stay here on the island," said Sir Topham Hatt.
"Oh, thank you, sir," she said.
And all the engines whistled happily. The end.
Hey guys, this is Mainline Engine 2. I hope you enjoyed this episode called The New Engine. And now there's a new character in my series. And her name is Holly. And I have her name on the bottom. And that's our new engine. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is the season finale episode. So this is the last episode of season 10. And I will not be making any more episodes I'm going to take a break, but in that time I'm going to be doing some remakes and some more reviews, so look forward to that. And now it's time for this layout to go. Okay, I'll see you later. Goodbye.